Somewhere along your awakening journey, maybe after a major spiritual insight or personal breakdown, you felt something shift. You saw the illusion, the patterns, the noise, and then silence. At first, it was powerful, even empowering, but slowly that sense of meaning just vanished. Not overnight, not dramatically, but quietly, like your soul turned down the volume on life and forgot to turn it back up. You stopped chasing, stopped caring. Not in a reckless way, just in that quiet existential sigh kind of way. The questions started whispering louder. Why do I feel so numb now that I finally see the truth? There's a strange paradox here. We expect spiritual awakening to ignite our passion, but for so many, especially the deeply introspective types, the empaths, the seekers, it does the opposite. It empties us. I remember talking to a friend, super bright, spiritually attuned, obsessed with all the right books. Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, Krishnamurti. Then she had a massive awakening after a dark night of the soul. She got it. She saw through the illusion of identity, ego, chasing external success. Yet 2 months later, she was staring at her ceiling, barely able to get out of bed. She told me, I used to cry over not achieving enough. Now I don't care whether I do anything at all. I thought awakening would light me up, not leave me like this. Jim Carrey expressed it perfectly. I wish everyone could get rich and famous and have everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that's not the answer. After this devastating realization, he went through years of what the media called his decline. In reality, he was going through the most crucial phase, the psychological death of Ego Jim and the birth of Soul Jim. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, hinted at this post-awakening fog years ago. He didn't talk in trendy spiritual terms, but he understood what happens when the unconscious becomes conscious. Jung said, enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That sounds beautiful until you realize what it means. Awakening isn't the end. It's the beginning of a psychological death. The death of who you thought you were. The structures that gave your life meaning, goals, careers, relationships, even your sense of time, all collapse. But here's the catch Jung would point out. Your ego isn't gone, it's confused. It lost its map, and without a new map, motivation disappears. So you're not depressed or lost motivation. You're just in limbo. You've woken up from something, but haven't woken up into something else yet. For most of your life, your motivation came from your ego identity, the me you thought you were. You wanted to prove yourself, be seen, be successful, be loved. That's not bad. It's how human development works. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to function in society. But the awakening process strips the mask. Suddenly you're not trying to be liked. You're not trying to win the game because you see the game. And that's where it gets weird. Without the mask, your old goals don't fit anymore. They were tailored to a version of you that doesn't exist. Michael Phelps lived this perfectly. After 23 Olympic gold medals, more than anyone in history, he fell into depression so deep he considered suicide. Not because he failed, but because he'd achieved everything his ego was programmed for. The operating system, I must win to prove I'm worth something, had completely crashed. Today, Phelps says his real victory wasn't in Olympic pools, but in finding peace with himself away from medals, accepting being human even without world records. Jung had a term for this psychological pause. Enantiodromia, the process where things flip into their opposite. When you awaken, your inner pendulum swings from ego-driven striving to soul-level stillness. You go from, I must do everything to why do anything? And this swing is sacred. It's how balance is restored. In myth and ancient teachings, this is the hermit phase, the death before rebirth. It's the moment the caterpillar turns to soup inside the cocoon. Not a butterfly yet, not a bug anymore, just goo. Eckhart Tolle, today's global presence guru, spent 2 years sitting on park benches after his awakening. 2 years. People thought he was a homeless person with mental problems. In reality, he was going through this soup phase, completely dissolved from his previous identity as a depressed academic, not yet crystallized into the spiritual teacher. This sacred nothingness you feel is where the unconscious finally has space to rise. You're not failing, you're metabolizing. Your psyche is incredibly wise. It will stall your motivation, your drive, even your access to clarity on purpose. So you're forced to feel, witness, and reclaim what you've buried. But our hyperproductive world misdiagnoses stillness as laziness, pause as paralysis. So you judge yourself, and that judgment blocks the very energy your soul is trying to call back. Here's where modern spirituality skips the hard stuff. It teaches just follow your joy or high vibes only. But Jung would tell you, if you try to skip the darkness, you skip the gold. Marco fell into this trap after his ayahuasca awakening. He started responding, everything's perfect. The universe knows what it's doing to everything. Lost his job? Everything's perfect. Girlfriend left? Everything's perfect. Couldn't get out of bed? I'm integrating cosmic energy. He wasn't living from the soul. He was using spiritual concepts like medication to avoid feeling the pain of transformation. Jung called this spiritual bypassing, using elevated ideas to avoid the dirty, necessary work of real growth. The real work isn't convincing yourself everything's fine. It's sitting in the fire until it burns away everything false, leaving only the gold of your authentic essence. Jung believed shadow integration, facing the repressed, uncomfortable parts of you, is essential for becoming whole. Not optional, not extra credit. It's the core curriculum of being a human soul. The shadow isn't just your flaws. It's everything you've repressed, denied, judged unacceptable, including magnificent parts you buried because they weren't appropriate. Lisa was the classic good girl, always available, always agreeing. After awakening, she felt waves of rage that terrified her. Instead of meditating it away, she dialogued with it. She discovered that rage was her authentic self finally finding a voice, screaming, "Stop being fake to be loved." Today, that transformed anger became burning passion for justice and authenticity. She didn't eliminate the rage, she elevated it. Anthony Hopkins at 70 revealed the secret of his most powerful performances. I stopped acting to impress people and started acting to express parts of myself I had always hidden. His most memorable roles came after integrating the shadow aspects he judged unacceptable for decades. When you stop resisting the void, something strange happens. Motivation begins to return, but it feels different. It's not anxious, not performative, not hustle. It's something older and quieter, a kind of soul-led movement that feels like remembering instead of chasing. Jung called this the emergence of the self, not as concept, but as living inner compass. You've walked through the void, felt the silence, the stillness, the deep pause. Now something new stirs inside you. Not lightning bolts or fireworks, but a quiet inner pull. Not to go back to your old life, but to build a new one. This is where the self begins to speak, not in words, but in nudges, in resonance, in what Jung called the symbolic life. Once the ego surrenders and the unconscious integrates, we become capable of living from a place deeper than personality. That's when life stops being about survival and becomes about meaning. The signs of transformation. Decisions become obvious. You feel what's right in your bones. You stop justifying yourself to others. You create even when no one's watching. Time changes quality. Every moment can be sacred. Solitude becomes nourishment, not punishment. Synchronicities multiply. Life starts collaborating with you. Steve Jobs embodied this perfectly. Being fired from Apple was his public ego death. Instead of surrendering, he used that period to reconnect with pure creativity. He founded Pixar, redefined cinema. When he returned to Apple, he wasn't proving anything. He was expressing vision with newfound purity. The iPhone and iPad were born after this death rebirth. The ambition doesn't die. It transforms completely. From hungry predator of external success to devoted servant of intermission. Before, what should I do to succeed? Now, what wants to be expressed through me? Before, competition, beat others to win. Now, collaboration. How does my gift serve the whole? Before, accumulation. More is always better. Now, sufficiency. Enough is true abundance. Instead of asking, how can I prove myself? Ask what feels honest. You begin participating with life instead of trying to dominate it. This doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means transforming it. Ambition becomes devotion to truth, presence, and growth. The irony is this kind of energy gets things done way more effectively than ego ever could. But now it's sustainable. Now it's soul-powered. This is the self's motivation, not to impress, but to express. When your motivation comes from expressing your essence rather than filling ego holes, approval, security, control, you access practically infinite energy. It's like switching from battery, drains, to solar panel, renewable source. Elena ran a pharmaceutical multinational, corner office, six-figure salary, international recognition. After a Vipassana retreat awakening, she saw how her life was built on control and approval-seeking. 6 months later, she was growing organic vegetables in the countryside. Former colleagues thought she'd lost her mind. You threw away $1 million career. She says, for the first time in 20 years, when I wake up, I'm excited to be alive. I'm not acting out someone else's life anymore. David was a world-class classical pianist. After awakening, he couldn't touch the keys. Every note felt empty, mechanical. He spent 2 years in complete musical silence. Managers panicked. Fans were confused. He was waiting for music to find him instead of chasing it. When it happened, walking in woods, hearing a melody from an unknown place, he recorded 3 hours of pure improvisation. It became his most acclaimed album, completely different from anything before. I don't play music anymore, he says. Music plays through me. If you recognize yourself in this process, understand this fundamental truth. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're not behind schedule, not failing, not broken. You're going through what every courageous soul must experience to truly be born. Death of false personality and birth of authentic identity. In the Sahara Desert grows the legendary tree of life, the last tree in 400 kilometers of sand. While others died seeking surface water during droughts, its roots went so deep they found an underground river no one knew existed. After awakening, you can't nourish from surface things anymore: career, relationships, success, approval. You must send soul roots to the deep source of essential truth. It seems eternal while you're living it, but when roots reach pure water, nothing can dry you up. You become unshakable, not because you're hard, but because you're connected to something infinite. The desert always ends. Spiritual emptiness isn't punishment, it's initiation. Soul silence isn't absence, it's gestation of something magnificent. The end of old motivation isn't death, it's pregnancy with a version of you exceeding all expectations. Carl Jung never promised easy. He promised something infinitely more precious. Becoming who you really are instead of who you think you should be to be accepted. Awakening isn't the destination. It's the real starting point. If this spoke to you, if it helped name something you've been silently navigating, know that awakening isn't the end of the story. It's where your real story begins. The spiritual desert ends, and what blooms after is stronger, more beautiful, more authentic than anything you ever imagined possible. You, brave navigator of inner mystery, are already journeying home to the version of yourself that has always known who you really are. The flowering is coming, and it will be glorious.